Welcome to our 5 on 5 feature interview. I'm joined by Senator Ron Wyden in studio. Senator, thanks for taking the time and joining us on this
Thanks for having me.
So if the reports are true that 90% of Americans want background checks, why can't the parties find some common ground?
Well, I hope this time it will be different. And I've been getting around the state, and I've said there's only one word that really describes the challenge, and that is enough. And particularly enough of all these excuses and cliches and trying to find a reason to say that it's okay for dangerous people to have guns. We're not talking about anything that is going to interfere with the Second Amendment, but we're talking about, in my view, the right of kids to have a childhood.
It's been 23 years, more than 23 years since Columbine in Colorado. How confident are you that this time that the parties can come together and find something?
My sense is, and we have begun bipartisan talks in the Senate, that there's a real opportunity now for some common sense gun reform. We need common sense, and we need it applied to gun safety. It's long overdue, and remember, this is not just something in other states. We live in southeast Portland. We remember Clackamas Town Center.
Mm-hmm. And red flag laws. We have one in Oregon. I believe 19 states have them. That's police or a judge coming in and taking someone's guns if they are not in the right space, for lack of a better phrase. Do you think something like that could be done at a federal level?
We're certainly going to look at it. I support red flag laws. One of the other ideas that might pick up bipartisan support would be some federal assistance for states to do it. But there are a whole host of areas. I mean, universal background checks is something that Oregonians talk to me about all the time. Now, we in our state have made progress with our own efforts, but you can't put up a fence around Oregon. We're going to need to look at some of these issues because our adjoining states aren't doing what is needed.
Certainly mental health is a big concern, and depending on maybe which side of the aisle people are looking at it from might be the bigger concern leading to these shootings. Do we need more money for mental health services and identifying these people potentially before these tragedies happen?
The answer is yes. I want to be very specific, though, about mental health. My brother was schizophrenic. We went for years worried about him at night, whether he was going to hurt himself or somebody else. And Mike Crapo, the Republican senator from Idaho, and I just put forward a major proposal in the last few days, particularly to expand the use of telemedicine to mental health and to have a mental health bill of rights, in fact. But we also have to recognize that certainly the majority of those who are affected by mental health challenges aren't committing violent crimes with guns.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. Senator, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Senator Ron Wyden. Senator, polls show the majority of Americans support Roe versus Wade staying intact. You called news of the Supreme Court's draft opinion to overturn the nearly 50-year-old law a, quote, 5-alarm fire. What happens next?
Well, first of all, I want to bring it home to Oregon. We have some strong state laws which offer a strong measure of protection for women now under our state law. But what we've already seen in Washington, D.C. is you've seen some Republican senators talk about a national ban, which would, in effect, supersede the Oregon law. So I think this comes down to a fundamental judgment, and that's respecting a woman's fundamental right of privacy. It ought to be her decision made with her physician about dealing with this.
You called this the fight of our lives. What are you doing about it?
Well, certainly I'm focused in the Senate with my colleagues in trying to move forward laws that would codify Roe versus Wade, but I've tried to make the point, particularly with my background working on technology issues, that the Alito opinion, the draft, is so sweeping that I'm concerned that it would, in effect, weaponize women's data against them. You have, for example, in a state, if a woman types in pregnancy testing, for example, that information, if a company decides not to protect her privacy, could be used against her.
President Biden recently signed an emergency bill to address the nationwide formula shortage. How quickly is this going to help Oregon families?
We're doing everything we can to support that. Certainly, The Women, Infants, and Children's Program, we can look at ways to make that more flexible. Using the Defense Production Act is one of the areas you touch on that makes sense. Policies where our allies can get us infant formula. But I'm very troubled about the role of Abbott, for example, because Abbott is paying a very modest tax rate right now. They're buying back their stock, and there's some evidence that instead of taking steps to modernize their big plant, they're buying back stock for their wealthy executives. That's not right, and as chairman of the Finance Committee, I'm focused on changing it.
Today is, of course, Memorial Day, and with that in mind, this is technically the first time in 20 years America has not been at war during Memorial Day. Is there anything you want to say about that, Senator?
Well, I want to just talk about Eagle Point because it was so important to be back there. We were all so grateful to be back there. This is a day when we think about loved ones lost. I mentioned my dad. My dad fled the Nazis. Not all the family got out. He was one of the Ritchie boys that was honored recently. The young Jewish people who served in our army were leaders in dropping propaganda pamphlets on the Nazis. And it was just so good to be back and seeing the families hug and smile. And there was a tear or two, and I said at the end of my talk, I said just one word: grateful.
Thank you for taking the time and joining us today,
Thanks
sir.
for having me.
We'll be right back.